Hi, Mackenzie.
Hey, how's it
How are
going?
you?
Hey, Lisa, doing good?
So the answer to your question is yes.
Yep, got that.
Oh,
I'm on the East Coast, so it is a bit late after a long day. So,
really? What are you doing on the East Coast?
back at our headquarters, I had a customer visiting our headquarters and had to take care of all that. And then on Monday, also started a new job within the company. So there's
What
also
what's the new job?
UX product manager.
Okay,
So
very nice. You're excited about this?
NCUPS?
No, no, no. The new
No.
job.
Yeah. Um, as soon as my old coworker who had the position told me that he was leaving, I immediately messaged the his manager being like, "Hey, I am interested in replacing Martin." So it
Excellent.
took a stupid amount of time to make this happen, but it happened. So
Excellent. Sorry, I'm getting a little canine support here. Let's let's show everybody who's helping.
oh, there we go. The best type of
As
helper.
Yep. And the ear down. There you go. Good boy. Um, So I don't think you and I have talked since you were back from Wakatobi. It totally sucked, right?
Absolutely horrendous. Absolute complete waste of time. Couldn't have been shittier.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, the pretty much the only bad thing about that trip is the getting there and getting
yeah,
home, because
yep,
that part really is not great.
yep.
But the diving is not bad.
No. I left my 90 on for like all but maybe th four dives, which
Really? You
which
didn't
was
shoot
good
any
and
wide
bad.
angle?
I shot a little wide angle. I should have thought shot more.
Yeah,
But my friends that were mostly shooting their TGs,
yeah.
were very happy that I put my 90 on because we got some great turtle action and other big critters and all that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, you let me know if you want to like go back to Raja, right in the neighborhood there, and you can bring your macro stuff, but you know.
well, actually, the whole like customer visit this week is because it was doing an acceptance test on a tool that's supposed to end up in Malaysia that I'm supposed to
Mm.
follow there. So it's like, well, if I'm in the neighborhood,
Oh, totally.
maybe, yeah,
Or if you just want to bring your macro stuff and you're in the neighborhood, you can just go right over to Lembe
yeah.
and have a very good time.
Well, that's where me and my friends are thinking about doing maybe next year or the year after's trip is going to Lembe.
I'm going in 11 days.
Oh shit.
Yeah, excuse me one second. All right, guys, come on. Hey, 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 hey. Yes, I am leaving here on the 23rd, going for what used to be the Wet Pixel and Alex Mustard workshop, but is now just an Alex Mustard workshop because it's Wet Pixel. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Have you not heard this like whole story?
No.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There is no more Wet Pixel.
What happened?
You know, I would encourage you to read some of I'll send you some posts.
Okay.
But basically, um so Adam Hanlon bought Wet Pixel from Eric Chang.
Yeah.
And for a while, it was all good. And then people paid for trips and then had trouble with logistics, and it seemed like boats weren't getting paid or were getting paid late, or refunds that were supposed to happen, allegedly didn't happen. And there were a lot of trust issues, and yeah, it
Wow.
was not good. And if
Nope.
you look at the Wet Pixel site, it has not been updated now in like 2 years. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's basically done. So
Crazy. I had not heard that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not a good situation. Not a good situation. Um, so in any event, Alex is doing the workshop himself, and he was always the kind of the talent for it anyway. Adam was kind of the admin. Um,
Yep.
and so it'll be good. And the critters will be great, of course, like always.
Oh yeah.
So good,
On
good.
our very last dive in Wakatobi, we did the site that was right next to the house reef. So we even kind of like drifted onto the house reef, and that's kind of where we finished. Um, I stopped counting turtles at about 15.
Yeah.
Like it was just one after another, after another, after another. And like one of my friends is like all about turtles and was like going after them and like to get the shots and everything. And then even at some point he was just like, I don't really need to chase another turtle. Like
They're just everywhere. But
they were gigantic.
you can go to Maui and do that, right? I mean, there's like tons of turtles there. Um, if you do go to Lembe, Silodon, which is kind of on the other side of the peninsula, it also has a site that's basically just infested with turtles. I mean, they're just like, all right, get out of the way, guys. You're like blocking all the other stuff. It's crazy.
Oh, yep.
Crazy, crazy.
Um, but our guides were fantastic. Like I kept it took them a day or so to kind of like get used to us and all that because we are who we are.
Yeah,
Um, but once they really started figuring out exactly what we wanted and all that, they were just all after it. Like they were just finding critter after critter after critter. It was
nice.
awesome.
Very nice. Well, anytime you're ready to give the 90 mil a workout, you let me know. We'll go somewhere.
Oh yes, I'm always ready to give it a workout. It's
Did you stop in Bali on the way to Wakatobi
yep.
and dive some?
We did not dive some.
Oh man.
I only had like 2 days on the way in and then an
Yeah.
over the way out.
Yeah.
But also on the list of places to get back to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's good too. And you can
Yeah,
definitely just put your macro lens on and never look back.
exactly. Oh, God, it was a good trip.
Yeah. And I trust the Wakatobi Resort is still nice. We were there a while ago, and the resort itself was pretty sweet.
It is wild how nice that resort is, and like the
Yeah.
staff and like all that is just like insane.
Yeah. Not your typical dive resort. It's more like an actual resort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, hey Bob, how are you? Maybe not
Bob
on
fall
yet.
asleep. Not fully on yet. Or muted.
Either that or he doesn't know he's muted and he's talking to us.
He doesn't appear to be. Oh no, he is muted.
And it looks like we have Levon as well.
Yeah, and Levon is not muted, but oh, Hi, Levon.
Oh man. How's everyone else doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm taking
Awesome.
off in 2 weeks to go to Analau round 3.
Round 3.
Yeah, because they Crystal Blue Resort has a great house reef, and
Yep.
I gotta go back.
Are you going with a group of people or just going on your own?
I think it's a blue. Is it blue water? I think it might be blue water. Underwater photography class again. Mike Bart. So
Hmm.
and I just got back from
Hmm.
truck about a month ago. So that was fun.
Were you on the backscatter trip or was this a separate one?
Yeah, I think I was on the backscatter trip with Becca. Yeah,
With Becca and all that? Nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I kept up with the big boys there.
I just got back from Cozumel with any water and made a mistake that I was the only photographer and it's drift diving. So I had to just take one shot as I flew by.
Mhm.
Pictures, no stopping, because then that was behind and they were upset because they thought they had to wait for me. So, didn't get very many good pictures.
Oh, that's always fun when you're the lone photographer in the group.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that happen before. I mean, but I usually sign up with other photographers. So I won't do that again. I will make sure that
You think
I
would it have
have
been
other
better if you were doing videography, do you think?
possibly that I said was no other photographer. There was
Yeah.
one newbie diver who was actually a very good critter finder
Yeah.
who had his cell phone in a housing, and he
Oh,
took
okay.
he got a great video of a turtle. Turtle
Wow.
went right toward the lens and turned.
Mhm. Were there a lot of dive boats in Cozumel, or how was the diving overall?
Well, I didn't really notice other dive boats. I mean, there are other dive boats, but
No.
I guess they coordinate with each other. And we saw what looked like military on the side of an inflatable, all waiting, getting ready to back roll into the water.
Yeah. Were the reefs in good shape though, or?
Seemed to be, as
Oh,
far as
that's
I could
good.
tell.
Yeah. Okay. We've
I-
been thinking of going there sometime in the next year or so. That's why I was asking.
What one other gal and I did on the way was stopped in Cancun
Yeah.
and did the cenotes for 2 days
Oh, cool.
with somebody named Rigo. Does anybody know Rigo?
No.
He's done some teaching at Aquarius, but
Okay.
he now lives in Cancun and actually had a Verbo that he put us up in. Of course, we paid him.
Yeah.
And he took us to breakfast, he took us to lunch, he took us to dinner. It was great.
Full service.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bob, did you figure out where you were going to be taking your son on the trip or
Well, we
whatever
we just got back from Fiji a couple of weeks
Oh.
ago. So we went to Paradise Taveuni, down at the south end of Taveuni.
And
How
how
was
was
that?
it?
It was okay. I was a little the resort itself is awesome, but the diving was disappointing. They try to just use single cattle boat diving, so we didn't get to a lot of the better things in Somo Strait or Rainbow Reef. I was going to ask other people if they had dove Rainbow Reef or Tabayuni before. Has anybody been there or no?
Not
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
No, I've been to 3 other places in Fiji, but not there.
Okay.
I think I've been to Tavioni, but I can't remember anything about it.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Okay. Yeah, my wife had
Not
been
too
there like
memorable then.
28 years ago, but you know, she doesn't remember a whole lot about it. So
Say what? I'm fine. Hi, everybody.
are there
Hey, Helga.
Helga.
Hey, Jim. Okay. Well, we'll
Is Brad coming?
I don't know if Brad's coming. I haven't heard from them.
He was supposed to send me an Excel file with everybody's address in it, and I still haven't gotten it.
Well,
Do
we
you
can
have
remind
it,
him.
Kenzie?
What that?
Do you have it?
No, I don't think I have it.
Okay.
I'll make a note.
Yeah.
Is this the...
This is the 3rd month that I've reminded him.
Okay. Okay.
Mackenzie?
Well,
I see we have our esteemed speaker on the
we
call.
do.
So
So I think we'll get the show rolling, and as
Okay.
stragglers get in, we'll let them
Okay.
roll in.
okay.
So start out with a few quick announcements and all that good stuff. Renewals for membership, if you haven't done that yet, make sure to renew. You can either renew online or sending the check to Helga if you want to pay that way. And the address is in the newsletter as well as on the website. And for mini comps, so our April theme is is portfolios. So rather than just doing single shot, people selected 3 photos of whatever theme they wanted. So we didn't have a set theme for the portfolio. It was just whatever the photographer wanted for their theme. Then looking into May, the theme for the mini comp is going to be negative space. In June is going to be pink, and in July will be reef. Also, coming up in May, our mini comp, not a mini comp speaker, our presenter for the May meeting is going to be Anne D'Souza, and she's going to be talking about lighting and all that. She works for Light in Motion, so she's going to give us kind of a talk on that side of things. So with that, we will welcome our speaker, Levon Basso. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Pretty
So
close.
talking, how do you pronounce
Basso.
it? Basso.
You got Levon right. Basso is the last name.
Okay, there we go. So getting into surf photography, so something a little bit different than we're normally used to. So this will be a nice new topic to get into and kind of hear about. So based on Oahu, been doing it for the past 8 years. So with that, we'll welcome Levon. And also as a reminder, please keep yourself muted during the presentation so we can hear everything. And feel free, whether you want questions either asked throughout or wait till the end, we can do either way. So with that, we'll hand the reins over to you. So welcome.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you guys having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. At least
Okay.
I can.
I'm one of those people that did not have to use Zoom very much during the pandemic. So I know how to use it, but I've actually never done a presentation till today on here. So I'm just looking at it from a different perspective and making sure I got everything figured out. So I hope I do. So a little bit about me. Like was said, I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii, on the island of Oahu. Guessing a lot of you have been there. here to Hawaii. I kind of have a interesting um, backstory, at least find it interesting, where it's come full circle from things that I used to love doing as a kid to now where it's something I'm trying to make a career out of now. A little bit about me, I spent my childhood kind of in two very different places as far as its relationship to the ocean. So I grew up, let me make sure I can share my screen here. This is close to where I grew up, in Honolulu, just above where I grew up. And can you guys see that? Am I doing it right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, good. Grew up here, just like a lot of kids in Hawaii. I grew up in the ocean, loved bodyboarding especially, and thought that, this is going to be my life. So this is what we did growing up, bodyboarding. And then about halfway through my childhood, our family up and moves to Southern Utah. Also really pretty, but in a very different way, obviously, because it's a desert. So I was thinking about this as I was getting ready for this presentation. I thought, that time in Utah was awesome, but one thing it really did for me as a surf photographer, which you might not think it would do anything for you as a surf photographer, is it took me out, number one, of the environment I was used to growing up here in Hawaii, at an age in the teenage years where everybody else that I knew was surfing their brains out, I'm sure, and just falling in love with the ocean and having that really strong connection with the ocean. Meanwhile, I'm here in the desert. So it kind of stoked this real hunger for the ocean. And every time our family was able to come back and visit family throughout those years that we lived in Utah, I tried to absorb as much as I could as far as water time goes. And then finally, fast forward years later, I was able to come back in my 20s for school. And, it was on at that point. I just tried to get as much time in the water as I could. Now, back during those days, about the only thing you could shoot with was those point and shoot disposable cameras that you could get on the supermarket aisles. There wasn't any GoPro just yet. A lot of people, not a lot, a few people were shooting in the water with homemade welded housings that they made themselves, but not too many people were shooting in the water just yet as far as surf photography goes. So that wasn't really happening yet. Um, After school in Hawaii, I left and went back to the mainland for about 5 years for additional school. Same type of thing started happening, just missed the ocean and I couldn't wait to get back. And then fast forward again to about 2008 is when I came back, hopefully for good. Been here since then, been back here since then. And that's when I really started getting into surf photography in earnest and really trying to not just surf and have fun with it, but also, really try to nail good shots. And those early days, it was tough. I'm going to try to zoom in here so you can see this. This was the first housing I ever had for a very old point and shoot Canon camera. Maybe some of you have had one of these. It was actually pretty good till it flooded, of course. And I'll never forget an experience I had in the water with another surf photographer, which kind of taught me in a sense what not to do, at least what I feel what not to do when you're a photographer and other people are trying to learn. I was having issues with this housing fogging up, and I just to make conversation with this other surf photographer who I could tell was very experienced. This would have been about 2008 or 9, maybe 10. I went up to him, swam over to him in the water, and just said, "Hey, what do you do to minimize the fogging up inside your housing?" And he just kind of looked side eye at me and was just like, "For that thing?" And then he swam away, and that was it. So I was just like, "Wow." And I don't know. From that day on, I just kind of made the vow. There was two things that happened. One is it made me want to really get even better surf photography, and of course, in that case, figuring out my equipment. But also, in the process of learning and growing, in the years that would come, I just told myself, I would never act like that. If somebody wanted some knowledge and needed some help, I would, willingly, gladly offer that to them. So it started there, and then kind of soon after that came the GoPro years. I'm sure most people have or have had a GoPro. This was my first one. Very first time I used it, flooded it and broke it in the surf. It was a good day too. This was back before GoPros were actually waterproof without that housing, and I knew that they needed the housing. I had the housing. It still flooded anyway, somehow. And then over the next several years, I had a variety of different GoPros. And actually, a lot of my images that I've shot over the years were shot with a GoPro. Let's see if I can find some examples here. That's not a GoPro. I'm pretty sure that one is. This one definitely is. And that one is. And so I've had a lot of, this one is actually shot with an iPhone 6 inside of a housing. And so I've definitely, by virtue of being broke over the years, have had a lot of experiences in making do with what I had and trying my best to ignore the restrictions of equipment and just focus on being in the moment that things happen, whether it's the lighting, the surf conditions themselves, the weather conditions, and understanding positioning in the surf lineup and just being there and taking advantage of that moment when it presents itself with whatever equipment I had. This is a GoPro shot that's been one of my most popular over the years. Some of these are from land. This is definitely a GoPro shot. One of the advantages I found in surf photography with using a GoPro is you can get in situations like this where you're going to get absolutely pummeled and pelted by baseball-sized rocks and whatnot, and not have to worry too much about your gear. Of course, you might have to worry about damage to yourself, but your gear is going to be okay for the most part because it's just that little GoPro in your hand. This would have been another GoPro image. Some of these are, like I said, with various cameras throughout the year. Okay, before I ramble too much, let me get back to where I was with my notes here. So I guess you could say probably for about the last, I would say 15 years at Ernest is how long I've been at trying to nail good wave shots. And along the way, of course, you know, there's shots of turtles and dolphins and drone shots and things like that. Everything that's kind of attached to the ocean, because frankly, you don't get to always shoot really good wave shots in the ocean because the waves aren't great most of the time, even in Hawaii. If the waves are good, sometimes the weather's not great and you don't have great lighting. Sometimes the lighting is outstanding and there are no waves. So you just, again, have to kind of make do with what you have at any given moment when it comes to the ocean. So going back to what I was talking about earlier and my approach to how I get these images is it really, really helps. Going back to what I said earlier, having that experience in the ocean. I've known a lot of photographers that have tried to get into surf photography, having never really grown up body surfing or bodyboarding, and you can do it for sure. But that feel, that sense you have for what the waves are gonna do or what's happening with the currents and positioning and understanding where a wave might break relative to that current or an incoming or an outgoing tide, or you know, sometimes the managing of the situation you have to do has to do understanding where other photographers in the water are, or if you're trying to get an empty shot of a wave with no splashes or kick marks from other surfers and other photographers, then sometimes that comes into play in understanding how to position yourself with that. So like any genre of photography, I guess you could say there's a whole lot that goes on aside from just hitting that shutter button. And you really don't get that just like any other version of genre of photography in any other way other than just lots and lots of experience. I was looking for that specific photo I showed you guys earlier of the old Canon point and shoot housing, and I had to go way, way back to 2009 or 10 in my Facebook to grab this photo. I guess I posted that one day because I was stoked that I got it in the mail. But in the process of that, I came across lots of my old photos and they're terrible. And I was like, man, I got to get these off Facebook. These are horrible. Old photos of crashing lips around me as I'm inside the barrel of a wave, but blurry and just I don't know what I was shooting there. I don't know. But I'm sure we've all got photos like that, and that's part of the whole learning process and experience of getting better. So a couple other gear things I forgot to mention. After kind of I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I started moving away from GoPro finally. People would start to ask me, when are you going to shoot with a quote real camera? And I was kind of offended by that for a while. I was like, what are you talking about? This is a real camera and I'm having fun and I'm liking the photos I'm getting out of what I do. And I'm good with that. But there's definitely some things you can do with an actual quote unquote real camera, whether it's a DSLR or a mirrorless camera inside of a housing. So my first one about 3 years ago was a Sea Frogs housing. A lot of people in the dive world do like these housings. A lot of people don't for various reasons. I liked it because of the cost. It was easy entry. I think I had just spent a good deal of money on a Sony A7 III and some lenses. And so I was looking for something that was not going to break the bank, but I felt was still somewhat trustworthy and was pretty trustworthy for me. Um, Liked it a lot. Just like any housing, there's hang-ups to it, but it was a great housing for me. Fast forward to about a year and a half ago, I actually got rid of that camera, got a Sony A7 IV, and decided I want something a little bit different that's going to allow me a little bit more tactile feedback and control and be a little bit lighter weight, easy to swim around with. And so I am currently using an Outex housing. I don't know if any of you have heard of these. They look, whenever I show people these, they're like, you're swimming out in the surf with that? And I was questioning myself as well. First time I ever did that. Um, because obviously it does look like a plastic bag that you just slip over your camera, but it's a lot more solid than that. And I've tested it in some pretty big, heavy wave conditions that you would think would put this at a lot at risk, but it's worked like a champ. The only drawback is just it's a little bit hard to get on. I liken it to somebody trying to put on skinny jeans. You kind of have to put them on piece by piece, little by little, and wrap that silicone housing over the camera. But as far as the seal it provides, both on the front and back elements, it's a really solid seal, and I just love being able to feel everything, use all the buttons of the camera, and also be able to utilize any kind of lens that has whatever zoom range it has. That's one of the limitations sometimes, with a hard housing, you have to deal with different ports and things. And sometimes even with the right port for a right lens, there's limitations to how much of that lens's zoom range you can use. So I really appreciate what this can do for me. So aside from that one disadvantage I mentioned, I really love it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with equipment. And yeah, as far as my approach and how I like to shoot, it's the thing with surf photography, like I talked about earlier, is you really are at the mercy of the ocean. Perhaps more so than most other kinds of photography. In a football game or a basketball game, also you don't really know what's going to happen exactly, but you know something is about to happen and you can kind of gear up for it if you're paying attention to the game. Same type of thing does happen with the ocean, but there's so much foresight, like we kind of talked about earlier, and having to judge where you're going to be relative to the wave. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of work and figuring out how to do that. But it's definitely something that if you're interested in getting into this genre of photography, you can do that. And it's something you can learn through experience, like we talked about earlier. One of the ways I use this sometimes as a relief to kind of switch it up sometimes when I'm a little bit bored with big waves, as weird as that sounds, it can get a little bit repetitive. And one of the things you can also do if you're wanting to get into surf photography is just find a little shoreline that has pretty clean, smooth breaking waves that are a couple of inches high. And just practice that timing, getting to understand how the wave breaks. You know, sometimes a wave will break perfectly with the lip of the wave coming over, kind of like the photo you can see over my shoulder. And sometimes the water will pull back and there's no water in front of it. It's just dry sand, and the wave will just kind of surge onto that sand. So little things like that become the things you start to pay attention to as you are learning how to photograph a wave. And you know, I think most photographers will tell you the holy grail of surf photography is getting that perfect barrel shot inside of the breaking wave, the tube or the barrel of the breaking wave, and just enjoying that fleeting moment. It's probably the thing that keeps both photographers and surfers coming back to it, is it's so quick and it's so fast. And even though you can capture it again and again on camera, it gets to a point where it's addicting because you want to have that anticipation, that build, that moment unfold literally over your head. And there's no feeling quite like it, honestly. So let's see. So far, is there anyone that has any questions about anything? I definitely don't want to make this like a lecture thing. I'd rather answer questions and have a discussion as much as possible.
I've got a couple.
Okay.
So, you tried any slow shutter speed wave breaks?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
y- Yeah, I have.
Okay. That's probably a
It's
little more
pretty fun
challenging.
to do. It can be, yeah. But I'm trying to think of a shot that I have. I do have one or two shots, and one of my problems is, and if there's anybody in the same boat, get out of this boat, is that I've not done a good job of backing things up over the years. So I've had computer and hard drive failures probably 3 times in the past 10 years and lost everything at that
Ouch.
point. So don't be one of those people, especially if you have these valuable photos that you might never. But yeah, as far as that question about slow shutter surf photography, and it's pretty amazing when you nail that one shot, because like I said, with the in-water stuff, there's so much going on that it's really, really challenging. And when you get one of those photos that works, it's awesome.
But I think the real question though is for the slower shutter speed ones, I mean, were many of them keepers, or because I think most of the stuff you've been showing us so far is all like very fast shutter speed, right?
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh.
It's probably like many genres where you can employ slow shutter speed photography. Lots of them are not keepers for sure.
Yeah.
But a few of them are. The one I'm trying to think of, and I trying to think where I could quickly find this photo. I don't know if I could,
Mhm.
because of that data loss I was talking about. It's basically a shot kind of like I'm on land looking straight at it, and the
Yeah.
surfer is zooming past me, and I'm trying to, like you would with a race car, I guess,
Mhm.
pan with him. And meanwhile, the wave around him is kind of blurry.
So the surfer is sharp because you're panning with him.
He's not super sharp in this
Okay.
particular photo I'm thinking of, but
Yeah.
it's not bad. It
Okay.
was my first attempt at doing that. In
Yeah.
fact, it might have been an accidental attempt too. Had my settings off.
I was amazed you could get good GoPro pictures because, with the GoPro, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't control the focus, you can't control the aperture, and you can't control the shutter speed, right? So,
For the most part, yes,
right.
that's true. But the way they've made GoPros for action sports is
Yeah.
such that it's kind of tailor-made for freezing this kind of action, as
Yeah.
long as the lighting's good.
And so the shutter speed and the aperture were to your liking most of the time?
Most of the time. I mean, if you're trying to get something artistic where there's depth of field stuff going on now, it doesn't work like that. Like
Right.
there was times where I'd try to get real close to the lip of a breaking wave, like you see in this photo here, and
Mhm.
it's just all around blurry because it doesn't really have a minimum focus distance that works like that.
The other thing, the other difference between like a quote unquote real camera and the GoPro is like a lot of the real cameras now, they'll shoot, I don't know, 15 or 20 shots a second, if you just hold down the shutter button, where the GoPro won't do that. Do you use that kind of rapid auto shooting in your work or not?
Oh yeah, absolutely, all the time.
Okay.
Actually, a GoPro does do that. Most of these
Oh, really?
GoPro
Oh, I
shots
didn't
I
know that.
have were set to 30 frames in a second.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know you could do that with the GoPro. Okay.
So these are, I just picked the best one, obviously.
Wait, were you taking GoPro video or was it rapid single shots?
These are photos. The way I would do it out in the water is, I'd look for a shot like this and I think, oh, that was really good. I know that was a good one.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get one on video. So then I just switch over to video.
Yeah.
So I've got a good number of GoPro videos, GoPro made videos on my YouTube channel with these kinds of shots, in video form.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I have a
You're
question
welcome.
kind of related to the slow shutter. I mean, how
Sure.
much time are you able to I guess, freeze your body in place? It seems to me that most of the time we'd be swimming, and anything like a slow shutter would just be essentially impossible. It's not a tripod shot, but then I thought, well, maybe sometimes it is. Maybe you're at a shallow spot where you could actually turn your body into a tripod or use a real tripod and get something that would work in that sense. Otherwise, I would assume it's all really fast shutter speed and you're swimming and hoping to get the composition the way you like.
You're right. It's most surf shots I've seen that are good as far as the slow shutter goes are from a tripod from land. Sometimes you get lucky, and like you said, either there's not a lot of current, or you're able to stand on some sand or a reef right before that moment where the wave comes over you. Or the other way that works sometimes is if, say, you're at a spot like Pipeline on the North Shore, where that wave breaks, obviously is chaotic, but photographers will often sit in the channel where the water is calm with a 70 to 200 and get shots like that way. So it's still, obviously there's still movement, and the more you zoom, the harder it is to steady that movement. But that's one way that people will do it. But you're definitely right. If you're in the water trying to get a slow shutter shot, it's really, really hard.
And I guess
You're
related
spinning a
to
good
that,
one.
I mean, I've, as someone who doesn't have a ton of experience in surfing, but I've had some, some memorable experiences at places like Sandy Beach, just getting completely,
Yeah.
head over tail, kind of just destroyed by waves, not even knowing which way is up. And I just can't imagine doing that with a camera in my hand. I mean, I think the first thing I do would be drop it. And it looked like that Outex housing had no way to even hold on to it or keep it, it would be gone. The first time out there, it'd be gone for me. I mean, is there any way to kind of make sure you can keep these things and sort of not hurt yourself
Yeah.
or wear a helmet?
Definitely. Let me just say that when it comes to how I manage my gear in the water, people think I'm crazy. I'm kind of a renegade, and some of it is born out of a budget and not having all the bells and whistles to my equipment and just making do with what I've got. And so that's kind of just turned into, well, this is just how I shoot. So for example, with a GoPro, I don't fuss around with handles and floaties and things. I literally will just have the GoPro inside that little dive housing with a leash around my wrist, and I'll hold it like that. With the Outex kind of setup that you're just asking about, I found that I can hold on to the camera grip in my hand pretty well, but there's definitely some football running back tucking under the armpit when you go under the wave. Now they do make straps that come with their kits. I just didn't like it very much because it kind of impeded the zoom functioning of it. They also make a version of their kit where you can attach a trigger handle to the bottom, and it's also encased in the Outex. And that's another way of, holding on to it a little more securely. You can attach something to it that attaches to your wrist. But yeah, there's definitely any housing option out there today. There's definitely ways of securing it a little better. I just don't. I should, but I don't.
Well, how often do you find yourself really getting getting tossed, like really being in a spot where you're going to be under for a while, kind of thing? Because you don't have a surfboard or something underneath you to really to move or to get
Right.
some flotation.
Honestly, not that often. And not having the surfboard is actually an advantage. When other people are getting tossed from the top of a wave or in front of a wave, I'm swimming under. And you actually can avoid trouble quite a bit. The worst ones are the ones where, and Sandy Beach, this happens sometimes, places like that, where you time a wave perfectly, you get under it, you get the shot, but as you swim under it, it kind of pulls you back a ways. And so the next one, suddenly you're in the wrong spot where it's breaking in front of you or right on top of you. And so you've either got to just handle it and just just allow it to just bowl through you, or try to swim. And that's another one of those experience things, is there's that decision moment where, can I make it under this wave or should I hold back a little bit? Because there's that little bit in the middle where you don't want to be. It's usually when, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the idea of a wave vortex underwater, where you see those little circles spinning around. I don't know if you've ever seen photos or videos of that, but if you're there right as a big wave is breaking, right as it hits in front of you and then rolls over you, and those little vortexes or vortices, however you want to say it, hit you, those are violent. It's actually not the bubbles and the water and the white water that's just violent. It's the vortex part of it that really throws you down, and then you get sucked back up, and then you get thrown down again. Usually in shore break waves, it doesn't last very long because it's out of there in a hurry. It's the deeper water waves where the currents are pulling down and passing through rock caves and circling into a channel and all kinds of stuff going on that can, there's a greater risk for being held under and whatnot, dragged out somewhere. That's a good question, though.
Are you always using natural light, or do you ever experiment with any kind of like external lighting, whether it be constant or strobes or anything like that?
In the water, no. I've only done 100% natural. I know a lot of photographers that I've shot near or with who do like to use flash in the water, but I never have. I don't love the look of it, and maybe it's just the way they've done it, but it can definitely give you a different look and give you different options, as far as time of day and whatnot, and different ways of illuminating surfers.
Now, you talked
But
earlier
I've never
about
tried.
how it's not always a good day to film the surf. I mean, how often how do you know what is or isn't going to be a good day? And are there times you go to the beach, you look at the waves and you're like, hey, it's not even worth getting into the water today?
Ideally, you make that decision before you leave home.
Yeah, okay.
There's definitely a whole field of surf forecasting out there,
Right.
that employs parts of meteorology and things like that. But
Mhm.
in places like Hawaii, Southern California, probably Northern California too, there's surf forecasts, tides, winds, things like that. And you kind of just assemble all these bits and pieces of information in
Mhm.
making that plan of whether you're going to go or not. And, like anything, sometimes you thought you had everything lined up and
Mhm.
you still get skunked when you get out there and you've driven an hour and a half to the edge of the island.
Mm.
It
So is it
happens.
based on like the wind and the size of the surf, or what are your main criteria?
It depends on what I'm in the mood for. Sometimes if the waves are just big and the wind is good, I don't really care about the lighting as much because I can still get a pretty dramatic shot even if the lighting is so-so.
Yeah.
Other times, if the lighting is really good, and the wind, for me, it's lighting and wind. Those are the two things. You want that slightly offshore wind blowing up the face of a wave, not crumbling it down. But a lot of time, my best shots come on smaller to medium days with good wind and good light, I feel.
Mm.
So I do kind of look for that most of the time, not always. Like I said, sometimes I just want a good pounding.
So what kind of lighting are you looking for? I mean, do you want it backlit or forelit, or where do you want the light?
I think that too is kind of just dependent on my mood. Sometimes I
Yeah.
want a backlit shot like this one right here. This is probably like, I'm pretty sure this is a springtime shot. This was maybe 4 or 5 in the evening.
Yeah.
Things like this was a morning shot,
Mhm.
kind of mid-morning, probably 10 or 11.
Mm.
This is also a morning shot, another evening one. I rarely shoot midday, although you can get a lot of really good shots midday with just that deep color of the blue water and the sun is shining and all that. One of the biggest reasons I don't shoot midday that often is a lot of times the wind conditions will deteriorate in midday, just like anywhere where there's ocean. So morning and evening tend to be the best conditions wind-wise in most places in Hawaii for waves. This would be a good example of what I was talking about earlier. You know, if you want to just get into it without the fear of getting pounded by a wave, this wave looks amazing, but it's probably 6 inches tall. And this is this is another one of those living on the edge things that I do. I shot this with a I think I had a kind of a starter-ish Canon DSLR at the time with maybe like a kit lens, like a 18 to 135 or something like that. No, actually, I'm sorry. This was a nifty 50 millimeter 1.8. No housing though. So I've been known to just kind of put my camera, as long as the waves are small, real close to the wave, snap that burst, and then yank it away. This happens most often when I'm waiting for a family portrait session to start, and I'm there a little bit early, and I'm just shooting waves, and I don't have my housing with me. So
You also do
that's
portrait shooting for a living?
yeah, that's actually probably how I make 90% of my income.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wish it was the other way around where surf photography was the 90% and maybe someday it'll get there, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, cool. You talked a lot about going to school. What was your education in?
Good question. So I had kind of a roundabout way of getting to where I'm at now. My undergrad was in exercise and sports science. Grew up my whole life playing sports, so that was what interested me. And then eventually went to medical school
Mm.
for 2 years.
Mm.
During about the second year, things kind of unraveled with my marriage and ended up getting divorced, and it was kind of messy and strenuous, and that kind of caused medical school to take a dive and hit the door. So then I was trying to figure out what to do next with life. And this is actually something I wanted to mention that I forgot to write down in my notes. This right here, surf photography, in a lot of ways, kind of saved me through that really depressing, difficult time in life. That I went through a contested divorce that lasted over 2.5 years, and it was hard, really, really hard. And just having the ocean and this outlet kind of not kind of it really did help me through it. And so that's kind of what got me into photography in general, as thinking about it more like a profession rather than just I love waves, I'm trying to get a cool shot for the wall or something like that. As I started taking photos like this and posting them on social media, and one day I had somebody ask me, "Hey, do you also take photos of people?" And in my head I was like, "No." um, but they were gonna pay, and so I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And so, I did the whole YouTube research on how to take the best portraits and settings and all that, and just kind of started on my own little self-education journey with that. This would have been about 2015 or so. And so that's kind of where that went. So education wise, as far as photography goes, I guess you could say self-educated through this kind of weird little journey that I've been on that went from one thing to another to another.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
People ask me often, do you ever want to go back to med school? Number one, I don't need any more student loan debt than I already have.
Yeah.
And number two, I don't want to give up this to go back to med school. Are you crazy?
Mhm.
When you're out there like doing like the surf photography and stuff like that, do you ever get to the point where you're just like, this is just like another day of work or whatever? Or like does every day when you're out in the water seem like a fantastic day?
That's a good question. Kind of, but it's more of a pragmatic reason. So there'll be days when, and it's not the ocean's fault, I'll just say that. The ocean is always amazing and therapeutic and fun and everything else you can choose to describe it. But there's definitely days, especially when conditions are okay, not great, but they're okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of all the client sessions I have to edit. Not only that, but I'm thinking of, okay, if I stay out here for 1 hour, 2 hours or more, how many photos am I going to take? And is it worth, the time I'm going to need to process and deal with all these photos, or are the waves just not that good? And I often find myself comparing to, things I've already shot in the past and deciding right then and there, this doesn't compare to that, but then there are other days when I don't think of any of that. And I just want to be out there, for the stress relief, for the enjoyment, just being connected to the ocean. Yeah. So that's kind of what goes through my mind with that. I guess you could say there's definitely people that are just out there every second they can be, and I'm probably at the point in my life. I am at the point in my life and have been for a while where I just can't afford to do that. Not only financially, but just, from a responsibility aspect, you just can't.
Do you wear surf fins, or how do you what are you dressed in when you're taking the pictures?
Usually, yes. In most of these shots that I've shown you, it's turbulent water and you need it to move around in. If you get in trouble, you need to get out of trouble, and that definitely helps. But occasionally there's some situations where it's not necessary. But for the most part, yeah, surf fins.
Okay.
Which, as you probably know, they're different than dive fins. They're
Right.
much shorter,
Right.
made to give you some propulsion, but be able to move your feet quickly too. You can't really afford to do big long kicks
Yeah.
if you're trying to get out of trouble.
That housing that you said was like skinny jeans, does that make is your camera negatively buoyant in that housing?
It actually floats.
Oh, it will. Okay.
Yeah, well, it depends. Some people I've heard of, let's go back to it, will try to suck out a lot of the air that's
Yeah.
inside there before they seal it up.
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of in the middle because I'm usually using a zoom lens. What ends up happening is as you try to zoom out,
Yeah.
say you're using a 24 to 105 or something,
Yeah.
you're losing all that air in there, and
Yeah.
you can't actually zoom all the way out because that
Yeah.
suction will just stop you.
Yeah.
So I tend to seal it up with a little bit of air in it so that I
Mhm.
can move in both directions with the zoom of my lens, and that ends up making it pretty buoyant.
Well, given that, you have no lanyard on it, I would also think, there is some chance of it getting knocked out of your hand, and you don't really want it to like sink to the bottom, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's another reason to keep it
Speaking,
positively buoyant, I think.
yeah. I think if this was not positively buoyant, I would definitely have something attached to me.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually didn't even think about that the first time I went out with it.
Hmm.
I had it, I'm just looking at it, taking a few shots, and
Yeah.
I kind of let go of it, and I thought, oh, it floats, great.
Hmm. Okay.
Speaking of getting it knocked out of your hand, the other housing, the sea frogs, for that I did have a leash velcroed to my wrist whenever I would use that, and that did get ripped off my wrist numerous times in big surf. Luckily, it floats as well, but there's been times where I went for long swims trying to find it float. I knew it was floating. I just hoped it didn't hit the reef or something like that and cracked itself open. There was one or two times where it washed up on shore. This actually happened at Sandy Beach, um, like the other fellow was talking about. And me and my friends were just looking all over, scanning the horizon. It was 300 yards down the beach, on the beach, but it was it's crazy how fast things that are floating in the water and that kind of water can move and get away from you.
Have you had trouble with that particular housing, getting sand in the buttons?
Yes, somewhat. You're talking about the sea frogs one, right?
Like the one you have on the screen right now?
Yeah. Yes, but I found that kind of shaking the housing around underwater and kind of just half pressing each button kind of quickly gets that sand out of there. Some beaches have more coarse sand than others, so it can be a little bit trickier if that's the case, but I didn't find it to get in the way of the function of the buttons, no.
I had a housing that I was getting out of a shore dive in sand one time, and it got
Mhm.
tumbled along with
Oh,
me.
Yeah.
And it had sand all through the buttons, and I took it to backscatter, and they had to send it out to go get cleaned.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I did experience a little tiny bit of leakage into this housing, and I assumed that it was happening through one of the buttons on the back of the camera, the housing, because I could see a few grains of sand that I just couldn't get out from there. But after lots of testing, long story short, I found out that wasn't the reason, and that the seal was still good there. It was some other cause, but yeah, that's definitely a cause to worry about if that does happen, because you never know.
Do you put, what do you put on the lens, the port lens there to kind of keep little bubbles, water drops from kind of
Good
accumulating?
question. Most of the photographers will tell you it's all about the lick, spit and lick.
Oh, okay.
They'll, and even if they've got one of those big dome ports, they'll do the same thing. They'll just spit on it and lick that thing all over. A lot of times, a lot of guys, what they'll do is lick it a lot before they actually get in the water, let it dry. And that seems to have the bonding of the water to the port or the glass last a little bit longer before they have to lick again. I've heard some people say that if you eat a starchy meal beforehand, the starch in your saliva makes it bond even better. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know.
There must be commercial solutions like mask defoggers or other surfactants you can buy, right?
There are, but in everybody I've ever talked to, they say nothing beats saliva.
Wow.
At least for that side of things, inside, you definitely could use some defogging things for the inside of your port and whatnot, but that for the outside, at least with seawater, that seems to work the best.
So speaking of defogging, your early question to that expert who kind of blew you off was, do you use like desiccants or that you inside the housings or to prevent that fogging?
I've never really found a need to.
Okay.
The only exception would be if I'm shooting a lot of video and it starts to heat up inside.
Yeah.
But other than that, with just photo, I'd never really experienced enough heat inside the housing that really starts to generate that type of fog.
So the question you asked him was about fogging inside the housing, is that right? Or and so, but you're saying that hasn't been much of a problem for you since then?
No, it hasn't. I think with that housing I was using, when I asked that question of that guy, it was really cheap, and I probably had leaks in it. Probably wasn't fogging at all. It was probably just a leaky housing.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
How do you position for these shots?
What's that?
How do you position yourself for these shots? I'm trying to visualize looking at her. You kneeling with the sand with the stuff crashing over you, or what do you
basically you are, for a shot like this or something like that, you are just swimming back and forth in the water, timing it, watching an incoming wave, trying to judge it. Every wave breaks with a different amount of intensity and hollowness and speed. So you definitely get to know specific surf spots. They've got their own personalities and how they work. Even from day to day, different tides, different swell directions. And it's just a matter of, okay, I got pounded on the last one because I was too late. So let me get a little bit closer to the breaking lip this time. More often than not, at least for me, I end up feeling like I don't want to get pounded. So I overcompensate and I move a little too close to the breaking wave, and I kind of miss it. So that peak part of the wave where the whole barrel is formed, I'm already kind of slipped under and out the back. So, but yeah, to answer your question, it's just a trial and error thing, and even the best of the best, which I don't claim to be, have lots and lots of shots that they just toss because the timing wasn't there.
I don't know if you already answered this question. What gear are you wearing on your body when you're doing this?
We have the advantage of warm water in Hawaii, obviously. So I've got my board shorts on, I've got my swim fins, and I've got my camera. That's it.
And a mask.
No mask.
Oh, no mask. Right.
Yeah. The mask, I've seen people use masks before, and it can be useful if you're trying to get a behind the wave shot like this. But it happens so quickly, and I've been swimming with my eyes open underwater for so long that it would just get in the way. So, and you know, shots where you're not underwater like this, it's definitely in the way. You definitely don't want that, especially when you know you go under a big wave and it could get ripped off and smash your face, and it's just not worth it.
When you're framing things up, are you looking through like the normal, like the small viewfinder, going off the back screen, or just kind of like pointing in a direction where you think you're right? And
That's a good question. Well, with GoPro, obviously, I'm using the GoPro itself as the frame. So if I can't see the wave because the GoPro is blocking it, that's probably what I want to be doing. And I'm just imagining that center spot, like on this wave right here, out in front of the GoPro. But for a bigger real camera, most surf photographers, they kind of look down a little bit. Some surf photographers, I shouldn't say most, some look down on those guys that look at the rear viewfinder like, oh no, you gotta get up in there. But I've seen so many busted eye sockets and noses and stuff from that getting just slammed in their face, especially the hard case housings. I'm kind of a little bit of both. So I will oftentimes have my eyes up there, and I'm at the point right now in the last couple of years where my nearsighted vision is kind of bad. So that screen on the back does nothing for me anymore. So I kind of have to get up in there in the viewfinder, but I'm very, very cautious. Like to me, my philosophy is like it's not worth breaking something in my face to get way up in there as the whole wave is coming over me. So a lot of times I'll frame it as I see it coming and then kind of back off a little bit and then keep shooting. And a lot of times you miss, but to me it's worth not getting busted up in the face.
How deep are you generally?
It depends. A wave like this on the screen right now, this is about a foot of water right on the sand. At a place like this at Pipeline, it's probably 6 feet of water. And then when the wave breaks, it's maybe 3 to 4 feet of water. I don't really shoot that much in water that's deeper than that. I'm trying to see if I have an example here. This is a good example of what's about 3 inches of water over a reef. So it's kind of a smooth, slippery reef, but it's still a reef and it hurts when you get slammed on it. But for the most part, if you want a hollow breaking wave like this, it's relatively shallow water. That's just the physics of it, you know. Unless you're dealing with a really big wave in deep water, like this is from top to bottom, this wave right here is about 15 feet. There's a little bit of backwash hitting that wave, breaking in about 2 feet of water. This is probably a little bit deeper. I would say this is maybe like 6 feet of water.
So do you have any video or pictures of you going out and doing this?
You mean of, you know, videos of me as I'm doing it,
Yeah,
like shot
I'm
by
trying to
someone else?
picture, yeah, I'm trying to picture how to just go about it. And
Let me, I do have one photo that I can think of, and I think if I send this to myself from my phone real quick, I can show you. But honestly, I wish I had more. Most times when I'm going out, it's not like a social thing. It's me trying to get away from people kind of a thing. So it's just me. So I often don't have someone there to film me, you know, which I wish, you know, especially my fiance could do it, but she gets bored at the beach a lot quicker than I do. So
Yeah.
I
Well, maybe
wish that
maybe you
wasn't
can
the
get my
case,
daughter
but
to do it for you, Tara.
she seems pretty busy too. But yeah, that'd
She
be
is,
awesome.
but
Let me I have a photo here. I don't know if I have any video of me shooting, but let me get to my Dropbox real quick and I can show you a shot that someone got of me. This one's kind of a good example to show you because it's the other side of a shot that this shot right here behind me. Come on, let's go. Where is that?
I always
Oh,
like
here it is.
people at work because usually people don't have photos of them doing what they're really good at. And so I'm always
Mm-hmm.
for that
Yeah, I know
reason.
what you mean.
Mhm. And
I'm definitely one of those people that doesn't have much of that. I wish I had more.
amazing how many photographers don't even, yeah, people that do
Yeah.
living.
In my opinion, it's probably because we're too busy getting what we want to get as far as shots go, and we don't think about having someone getting the shot. So there's a good example.
Okay.
Got a nice little rainbow in there. So again, that shot is the same photo as this shot behind me. A friend of mine, bless his heart. This is a good example. I think he was shooting with maybe a 135 millimeter prime, and he was on the inside of that breaking wave right there with that big lip crashing over, and he just got annihilated. But he did get that shot of me, so I was really grateful.
So you just walk in off the beach and
Yeah,
watch the waves and so you don't have to kneel down. Like I can't kneel down anymore. I can't squat very well with my knees.
right. I see.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, I'm standing right there, so that's chest high water.
Yeah.
Um, when the wave isn't breaking, I'm swimming around. Let me get back to this example. Yeah, you definitely either need to be either kneeling or squatting or sitting. I prefer squatting because then it's easier to get the camera out of the way, with that way I was describing earlier of how I shot this. Um, and if you are squatting or kneeling or sitting there, you're obviously going to get hit with a wave. It's not the biggest wave, but um, definitely makes it difficult to reposition sometimes.
Okay.
But I
Thanks.
guess it just to answer your question about limitations and what can work for people with different limitations. Yeah, I mean every beach is different. There are definitely some beaches where you can just stand in shallow water and take photos pretty easily without a whole lot of danger or risk, and it's not physically too demanding. It just depends on the beach.
He talked about that already. Thank you.
This wave right here is actually the day where I was talking about earlier when my housing got ripped off my hand and I was searching for it for 5 or 10 minutes. There was so much current going this day. It was crazy. One of those days where if you stop swimming for a second, you're gone. Just to stay in position, you have to swim constantly. It's like one of those swimming treadmills that Olympians.
Have you
I don't
tried
know if
some
there's
over
anything.
under
Oh, sorry,
shots
go ahead.
as well?
I haven't really. Recently, I do have one shot that I love that was with a GoPro. Where did that thing go? Let's see here. I guess I don't have it here. With a GoPro dome that I had at the time. And I have a dome right now with my Outex. I just never use it. I sometimes forget that I have it. But the other thing with surf shots and over unders is you definitely have to have the right lens that has that really, really short minimum focus distance, or something, that's super wide that can allow for that distance to get that clean line.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely another one of those holy grail shots that a lot of surfers like to get where I actually, this is another one of those shots. I don't know where it is for reasons I mentioned earlier, but someone did get a shot of me once shooting a wave at Pipeline where he's got the over under of the line. There's me above the water, below the water, and then there's the surfer out in front getting barreled in front of me. I wish I had that shot. I don't know where it is. Probably somewhere buried on Facebook.
Do you remember how much that Outex housing cost?
Yes, I think I had it open right here. I can find it quickly. That's the other thing I liked about it is I was looking for something very inexpensive. They have several types of kits. Have the Pro kit that allows you to have this open back glass to see your rear viewfinder. But if that's not something that's important at all, you just want to just shoot away and take your best shot at aiming. They also have an entry level kit like this where you can kind of just look through the silicone and hopefully you can see through it. You may not be able to. I'm definitely glad I got the one with the glass on the back. So the Pro kit with the straps, that's $425. I wish I had gone for the 369 because I never use the straps like I talked about earlier. But so the way it works, if you're curious, is, let's see if I can find the right picture here. So on this back glass part, there's a little bracket that goes underneath to the tripod mount. And then there's a lip around the metal ring that's attached to the metal bracket. The lip of the housing, the silicone goes over that, and then you screw another couple of rings over that seals that edge of the housing in between the two metal surfaces. Same thing happens in the front. In the front, it's a little bit different. The first ring screws directly into your filter threads of your lens, and then you wrap and place the edges of the housing around that ring, and then you screw another ring on top of that. So again, it sandwiches the edge of that lip of that silicone through between those two layers. And it sounds kind of sketchy, and I suppose it is, but I've had fewer issues with this than I did with a solid, hard plastic housing. That seal is really, really good. The main thing you have to watch out for is make sure that the silicone is evenly stretched around the entire ring. Some parts of it are than others. And of course, make sure there's no debris, sand, dust, hair, dirt, that sort of thing on the edges of that when you screw it in there first.
How long have you had it
It
for?
also,
Does the silicone like degrade over time and like UV and all
so
that?
far, no. I imagine if you don't take care of it and rinse it after every usage, it probably could. The biggest thing, I've had it for over a year now, I think. And used it a lot, and it's fine. The biggest thing you have to watch out for is not banging it against hard surfaces that could give it a little slice, because once that happens, you're done. Thankfully, the replacement, just for the silicone itself is like $100. Yeah, so these covers are $100. They make them in different lengths and sizes to accommodate for like a 70 to 200 or even bigger lenses, I think. I guess the Pro cover is probably a little bit bigger. And like I was saying earlier, they make these in different shapes to accommodate. So here's an example of that trigger that they make for the camera that also can be fitted inside of a housing or a cover that works with it. So I guess for me, it's definitely something like if you're not in treacherous water, if you're just diving or if you're using it in a swimming pool, totally fine. As long as you make sure to follow the directions and put it on properly and check, before you just jump in. I've found it to be super safe. It's just, again, like we talked about earlier, that the one annoying thing is getting it onto the camera. Not nearly as easy as popping it in the housing and shutting it. Any other questions people have? I don't know if I covered everything I was supposed to cover or that I said I would cover. I can't remember, but if there's something I didn't cover, please let me know.
Yes, one thing you haven't talked about yet too much is how do you sell a lot of your photos? And if so, how did you come to be discovered, or how do you sell them?
Honestly, I don't sell a lot,
Mhm.
but I would say that's mostly my fault because I
Yeah.
don't try as hard as I should.
Yeah.
I want to, but I am just so consumed with the portrait side of my business that it's hard to find the time to.
Uh-huh.
But I've found success as far as getting the word out there to people who have bought from me in the past. Social media for sure,
Mhm,
having a website for sure.
mhm.
I think the two of those are necessary in my opinion, because obviously the social media has the eyeballs, and then the website end of it, in my experience, gives you that legitimate feel to people in their eyes, like, okay, this is a real deal photographer who has real work and I want to purchase from him. And
Yeah.
then obviously the website side of things, from a business standpoint, one thing that's really stuck with me in trying to figure out how to get people to buy stuff, whether it's a photo session, or in a past life I was a personal trainer, getting them to buy personal training sessions or whatever it is just not making them think too much. Don't make
Mm,
me think.
mm,
Making your website as easy to navigate as possible. If you have to just think of the dumbest person out there who doesn't know how to navigate anything, pardon me for saying that, but just put yourself in that person's shoes, not your own shoes. Like, you may have, for me, I spent months if not years perfecting what I felt was a decent website, and in the process of that I definitely can see how um, previous versions of my website, while it may have seemed simple to me, that's only because I spent so much time on it.
mm.
To when I got that feedback from people saying, like, how do I even order? I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And when I went back to look at it from their perspective, it was kind of cumbersome to get through. So yeah, that's something that definitely, on the sales end of it, it's nothing, especially nowadays where it's so easy to buy stuff online. If it's
Yeah,
hard at all, they'll just click away and just not deal
yeah,
with it.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Happy to.
We had a question on the silicon housings. If you're
Uh-huh.
using them underwater around the surf, how deep can you go with that? I mean, is there any difference between that and a regular housing in that sense, or?
That's a good question. I know they have these things, a depth rating for these. I can't remember what it was. It probably says right here. Let's see. It says 33 feet. So that's not super deep. For me, in the surf, plenty sufficient. I would imagine it could go deeper, but obviously they're not going to push the limits. They're going to stay within their safe range of what they, claim it can do. But it's respectable, I would say.
Do you know a lot of other people who make a living as surf photographers in Hawaii?
Not a lot that do it full time. I do know some that make more money off of it than I do. It's kind of an ever-changing thing. It used to be that you made your money in surf photography by getting hired by the magazines to get photos, either for them specifically or of specific surfers for, a specific piece or whatever. Um, then it's kind of switched to, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Clark Little, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
he kind of is one of the first ones to get into the surf photography genre, as far as like in the water, shore break, big scary wave type of things. And he went full bore on it and set up his gallery and website and all that, and he does pretty well for himself as far as I know. Nowadays it's kind of evolving even further from that with social media, where a lot of times all of the pro surfers have their own video and photographer guys that follow them everywhere, whether it's them making vlogs or just capturing videos for them to use in their own YouTube channels or whatever they're going to do, upcoming surf movies. Um, so it's definitely one of those things where you kind of have to get creative, maybe a little ambitious, know some people to get into the right vein of it to really make a good living off of, if you're going to do it full time. It's hard. It's a hard one to do full time.
But you don't take many pictures of surfers, right? You're mainly taking pictures of surf without surfers, right?
I do. It's the sort of a thing where if the wave is coming and the surfer's on it and he looks like he's gonna do something skillful with it, I'll shoot it.
Okay.
But I definitely prefer an empty wave.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I find myself swimming out in conditions where there's little to no people more often than
Mhm.
crowded lineups.
Mhm. Okay.
No other questions? Then thank you. This was fantastic. This is an
Yeah,
awesome
wow.
presentation.
Great.
No worries. Happy to do it. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah.
If on that question, I don't know. I'm not claiming I'm any sort of authority in this area about websites and how I've set up things. If you want to check out my website, you can. It's got a little bit of everything on it, but this is what my gallery looks like. I use Squarespace. It's not the perfect solution, but it's worked for me. And people can just click on it. You know, back to that idea of don't make me think. I've got all the options here, including digital downloads, and then a description of what each of them are. And they can make purchases that way. But it's I don't know, it's worked for me. I need to do an update to this. I feel like I have way too many photos on here. I want to make it a little more exclusive and only have the best of the best on here. But another one of those things that is difficult to find the time to do. That
Actually, question
website, I
on
don't know
like
if
the
you can see it, is
logistics side.
saltycures.com. What's that?
Question on like the logistics side of things. So as people are ordering things, do you have a way that things are automatically then being sent to like a print shop to print, or do you then have to then place the order like separately and all that?
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that point yet of automation. I'm still at the point where I've got this set up, and then if somebody makes a print order, I'll, you know, set it up manually for them and order it, enter their details and set it up. I know there are definitely ways of doing it, different platforms that do it for you. I just I like the customization else that Squarespace offers, so I've kind of made the decision to sacrifice that automation in favor of having more control of the site itself. Now that we are here on this website, back to that question about over under shots. I think there's one of them on here. And yeah, no, that's not it. Where is that? Here it is. So this was actually with a GoPro dome, with a dome on top of a GoPro. That's that's probably my best over under shot. It's not great, but I like it. It's got a clear view of above and below. The GoPro, this is back to a question that was asked earlier about you know, what can be done with a GoPro as far as adjusting aperture, shutter speed, all that. This is what happens. Even with the dome, where that dome is, you know, a few inches out from the front of the lens of the GoPro, it's still not far enough to be able to get that water line in focus. So you just kind of deal with it if that's how you're shooting. All right, any other questions I can answer?
I think you might have set a record for the amount of questions.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. It's fun. Like I said, I love sharing all this stuff, and I recognize it's a genre of photography that not a lot of people are into or can do because of geography. So it's fun to share it because, you know, not everyone can be out there in these waves with me when I'm doing it. So it's fun to share the experience that way by answering them. And if
Yeah, this was
anybody is
definitely
ever in Hawaii and wants to try it out and actually get in the water, I'd be happy to show you the ropes a little bit. Promise I won't get you killed.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Not in a foot of water anyway, right?
Yeah. This is more up your guys' alley, underwater stuff.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
This is speaking of, you know, shallow water and not diving too deep and whatnot, definitely can be done. This turtle right here is at Waimea Bay in about chest high water. It looks deeper than that, but it's not. This was literally about 15 feet from the sand. Just swimming around.
Yeah.
Was
So
that when
there's
you were just like out on the waves and you just happened to see it swimming by, or were you actually
No,
looking for
this
'em.
day I was actually not looking for this at all. I was taking pictures of my kids jumping off the rock. And this turtle swam by and I just dunked my camera under the water and there he was.
It's a very
Funny
clean
how some,
shell, which is hard to find sometimes.
yeah. He's
Ask
kind of a
about-
younger turtle. This is another one of those just random things that happened one
There
day.
you go.
I was actually in the water shooting with clients who wanted to get some underwater shots. And all of a sudden, this pod of dolphins just swam up right to us and just circled us for a good 15 or 20 minutes.
Wow.
How deep were you then?
This is about maybe 10 to 15 feet of water.
Very nice.
You can kind of see the bottom, the reef shelf there.
Mhm.
There you are.
Yeah.
Oh, you're having way too much fun.
Yeah, I can't complain. This one was just out in the deep somewhere. You can see there's no land or bottom nearby. I don't know where I was, but it just it's a good little moment there.
So if you picked a random date to go shoot waves, what would your odds
Mhm.
be that it would actually be good? Like 1 in 4, or what percentage of days are decent for shooting waves?
I guess it kind of depends on where you're at in the timeline of what you like to shoot.
Yeah.
I think the odds are getting smaller the pickier I get with
Yeah.
what I want to shoot.
Yeah.
Like today it's overcast and rainy here. I wouldn't go out at all unless I was going specifically, for some dark, moody, black and white type of look. But overall, if I had to put a number on it, I would say I call it the score rate. Maybe about that, 1 in 4, 1 in 5.
Okay.
And even on those days where I don't quote unquote score, it was still fun, and I got some okay shots. A little bit of practice and a little bit of working on stuff and learning and whatnot, just being in the ocean.
Mhm. Okay.
Do you have any like super goal shots in your head that like you're thinking like, man, like if I could have this, I could just die tomorrow and just be completely done and be happy?
Oh, definitely. Couple of them. One of them, you all may have seen this recently on social media. This is not necessarily in the water, but I saw this video of a breaking wave. This is from a drone. And so the breaking wave is kind of passing the view of the drone, and out pops this dolphin that looks like he's going to hit the drone in midair. That was just something the other day. I was like, I got to get one of those. I don't know how it's going to happen. That's pure luck. Another one, I do want to, before I get too much older and the adrenaline overcomes me and I can't handle it, is to swim out on a big day at Waimea Bay. I don't know if you guys are familiar, to actually swim out there, during a big surf session day and just shoot from the channel. There's a few crazy people that do that already, but I haven't had the chance to do it yet. So that's one. There's another one that's in the surfing world. It's by this time it's kind of already a little bit cliche because it's been done so much, but it's still just so good of a shot. And that is just shooting with a longer lens, maybe a 70 to 200 at pipeline, backlit in the afternoon with a big wave just barreling over a surfer. I don't have one of those yet, so I definitely would like one of those. Maybe a third one would be a shot I've seen friends get where this is kind of a prelude to it, I guess you could say. But in this shot, you can see I didn't know these here. I was just going for the shallow breaking wave over this little rock shelf. But I know a lot of people who have scored a wave like this where there's a turtle on the back of it underwater. So they've captured the turtle and the breaking wave as it passes them. So that's definitely a goal shot. All of these are very doable. You just have to put the time in to be there and get it, when it's there.
Definitely.
Does anyone do this in dirty water like Monterey. I mean, all these look like warm water shots.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's another thing is a lot of days you go looking for this, not happening. And even at a day that was like this shot that I just showed you, the next day, for whatever reason, currents, maybe there was some runoff, it could be pretty dirty. But to answer your question, places, believe it or not, on Oahu where the water is not that clean, especially near river mouths, and you can still get pretty cool shots. This is a good example. You would not be able to see anything underwater at this beach. The water is kind of greenish brown because it's right by a river mouth on the rainy side of the island. But when the conditions are right, it does offer some pretty amazing. And this would be a perfect example of a place where you get a shot where it doesn't require much because it breaks in like knee-high water. The waves themselves are knee to waist high, and it's not very powerful. But getting up close like this, you can really, really nail shots like that. I think I've got one more example of that place. It's a little bit better. But yeah, to answer your question, you definitely can get some. This is another example, same place. You can see how the water here is not that clean, but with the right wind conditions, you can still make it look amazing.
Oh, we're going to try it.
Yeah, definitely. To me, it's the form factor, you know. Obviously, a clean water wave looks great, but it's just the thing that keeps me coming back is the form factor of a breaking wave. It's just so beautiful to me, no matter the color.
Well, the color changes here too. So, sometimes it's just incredibly blue, and other times it's hot.
Yeah.
So I went diving today in Monterey, and I, the shallows were actually pretty clean. I mean, I think we could have got decent, wave shots.
Nice.
So I think I'm gonna give it a try.
I think we should have I think we should have a group try.
Well, this now gives an alternative. Like when we go down and like all of a sudden you're like, shit, it's a horrendous diving day. It's like, okay, well, let's try some surf instead.
Backup
Very
plan.
true.
Yeah.
Very true. And if you guys, if you ever, again, I'm not claiming to be any world authority on this, but if you ever start getting into it and if you want a little bit of feedback, I'm happy to offer that.
That'd be great.
Thanks.
You might be sorry you said that.
Well, I think with that, unless anyone has some other stuff, we'll just thank you again. This was
okay.
Yeah, an awesome
They're quite
take
beautiful.
from what we normally see and doing all that, and clearly a bunch of people that have been doing this for a long time asking questions like, "Ah, shit, we don't know anything about this." So
We've all taken a dozen underwater photo classes, but none of them have ever covered any of this. So I think it's why there's so many questions.
Yeah. And it's funny because if the roles were reversed, I'd be in your same shoes when it comes to underwater stuff. I'm still a complete rookie in figuring out everything.
Yeah. Well, you've got some amazing underwater shots too, so.
Yeah, honestly, I think a lot of it is luck for me. But I appreciate that.
Well, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Anytime you want to come back, we'll gladly have you.
All right. That sounds good. I just noticed the chat and there's a question there. Was that a question that got asked and answered? I think it was. Jane called.
Yeah, that was me towards the beginning.
Sorry, I didn't see that earlier.
Yeah, that's okay. I thought, oh, I must not be in the right place.
No, it's like I said earlier, I haven't used Zoom in a long time, so that's on me right there.
Okay.
Well, I wish I could say I'm headed to the water, but it's an ugly day here, so we'll just look at photos, I guess. Thanks again, guys.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you. Have a good
Okay,
evening.
thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.
A photo competition.
Yep.
Yeah. So now we'll switch gears and do our mini comp. I have that loaded up and ready to go. Let me just do a quick check to make sure there were no last minute entries, which, oh, there was. So actually, talk amongst yourself for a little bit. Got to do some final setup.
And since they're groups of 3, it makes it extra fun.
I know it's
Yeah.
well, actually, fortunately, at least for the voting, I'm only taking one photo of the
Ah,
3
yeah.
to put there, so it makes it a little bit easier.
And will you be projecting the Smug Mug gallery?
Yes.
Excellent. I did a little manual rearranging to get them to be in the correct order so that groups of 3 were together.
Yep. I did see that. I was like, oh, because when I saw the portfolio, I was like, oh, how's this gonna roll with order?
Yeah.
Okay, they actually are all ordered. This works nicely.
So Paul, were some of the pictures not named correctly? Because I mean, they should order nicely by name, right?
You know, I really don't know what Smug Mug did, but like when I uploaded mine, they were just like interspersed between other ones,
Oh,
and I don't know why. So I dragged them around so that at least they were, as near as I could tell, clusters of 3.
I thought it would alphabetize them and just put them in the right order, but I guess not.
You know, you'd think. You'd think. All right. And McKinsey has put the voting link in the
Oh, by the way, you're still recording.
chat. Thanks for the heads up.